Cristiano Ronaldo intervenes when a rude customer attacks an employee with Down syndrome. The rain hammered against the windshield as Maria gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. The wipers fought a losing battle against the downpour, and her breath came in short, panicked gasps. She glanced at her phone. 3 missed calls from Cristiano. The clock on the dashboard read 2:17 a.m. Come on," she whispered, squinting through the blur of water. The headlights barely penetrated the darkness of the unfamiliar country road. She was lost, both literally and figuratively. A sharp curve appeared without warning. Claire wrenched the wheel, but the tires hydroplaned across the slick asphalt. Time slowed as the car spun once, twice, before crashing through the guardrail. There was a moment of weightlessness, then the sickening lurch as gravity reclaimed its dominion. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. Metal screamed against rock as the car tumbled down the embankment. When it finally settled, upside down in the ravine, an eerie silence replaced the chaos. Only the steady tick of the cooling engine and the drumming of rain on the crumpled roof remained. Claire hung suspended by her seatbelt, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead into her matted blonde hair. Through the spider-webbed glass of the shattered window, she could see her phone's screen illuminating the darkness with an incoming call. Alex again. She reached for it, her fingers trembling, but it lay just beyond her grasp. A sob escaped her lips as the screen went dark. No one knew where she was. She had made sure of that when she fled the gallery opening hours earlier, unable to face the consequences of what she'd done. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the darkness. "I'm so sorry." The words felt hollow, inadequate for the magnitude of her mistakes. As consciousness began to slip away, Claire's thoughts turned to the painting, her masterpiece and her downfall, and the faces of those she had betrayed in creating it. The irony wasn't lost on her. She might die here, alone in this ravine, because she had been running from the truth. And if she survived, she would have to face what she had spent years trying to escape. Her eyelids grew heavy. As they closed, she saw Alex's face, twisted in shock and betrayal as he stared at her artwork hours earlier. "How could you?" "He had," demanded, his voice breaking. "How could you do this to her, to all of us?" Claire had no answer then. And now, as darkness claimed her, she wondered if she ever would. 5 years earlier, Claire Mackenzie had arrived in Providence, Rhode Island, with nothing but a beat-up portfolio case and ambitious dreams. At 25, she'd already tasted failure, dropping out of a prestigious art program in Chicago after a scathing critique had shattered her confidence. But Providence offered a fresh start, away from the shadows of her past disappointments. The city's weathered brick buildings and artistic community beckoned with promise. She found a job waiting tables at Harborside Cafe, a cozy spot frequented by students and professors from the nearby art school. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills while she rebuilt her portfolio in the evenings. During her 3rd week, she served coffee to Alexander Reed, a 32-year-old photography professor. With kind eyes and an easy smile, he left generous tips and always asked about her day. When he finally inquired about the charcoal smudges perpetually staining her fingers, Claire hesitantly shared her ambitions. "I'd love to see your work sometime," he said, sincerity warming his voice. 2 weeks later, she nervously showed him her sketches. His thoughtful analysis and genuine enthusiasm rekindled something she thought she'd lost: belief in her own talent. Their friendship blossomed quickly, and within months romance followed. Through Alex, Claire met Emma Winters, his childhood friend and a successful gallery owner. Tall and elegantly poised with a shock of vibrant red hair, Vanessa intimidated Claire at first, but her sharp wit concealed a genuine warmth that eventually drew Claire in. "You have something special," Vanessa told her after reviewing her portfolio over wine one evening. "Raw, but with enormous potential. I can help you refine it if you'll let me." Under Vanessa's mentorship, Claire's work evolved. The technical skill had always been there, but now her paintings acquired depth and emotional resonance. Within a year, Vanessa offered her a spot in a group show featuring emerging artists. "This could be your moment," Alex told her, his eyes shining with pride. "Everything you've worked for." The night of the exhibition, Claire sold 3 paintings. Critics noted her haunting emotional precision and unflinching exploration of vulnerability. Standing between Alex and Vanessa as photographers captured their triumphant smiles, Claire felt she'd finally arrived. But success brought pressure. Galleries wanted more work, collectors inquired about commissions, and a prestigious residency program expressed interest. Claire's insecurities resurfaced. What if she couldn't replicate her success? What if she was just a flash in the pan? During this time, Claire met James Reeves, a 45-year-old art dealer with a reputation for discovering major talents early in their careers. Charismatic and intensely focused, Marcus took a special interest in Claire's development. "You're holding back," he told her during a private studio visit. "There's something deeper you're afraid to access. Great art requires courage, the willingness to expose your darkest truths." His words resonated uncomfortably. Claire had always kept certain parts of herself hidden, especially from Alex and Vanessa. Her childhood in a small Midwestern town with an alcoholic mother. The secrets she'd kept to protect her younger sister, Emily. The night everything had shattered, forcing Claire to leave at 18, never looking back. Marcus seemed to sense these buried narratives. "Use it," he urged. "Transform your pain into power." As Claire's relationship with Marcus deepened professionally, subtle tensions emerged in her personal life. Alex worried about Marcus's influence, sensing a change in Claire's demeanor. Vanessa, too, expressed concerns. "Marcus has a history of pushing artists to self-destruct in the name of authenticity," she warned. "Be careful." But Claire was intoxicated by Marcus's vision for her career. Solo shows in New York, international exhibitions, museum acquisitions. And as her star rose, the gap between her public persona and private truths widened. The unraveling began with a phone call on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Claire was working in her studio when her phone displayed a number with her hometown's area code. She nearly declined it, but something made her answer. "Claire, it's Emily." Her sister's voice, unheard for 7 years, transported Claire instantly to their shared past. "Mum's dying, liver failure. She's asking for you." The carefully constructed walls around Claire's past began to crack. That night, she told Alex, a sanitized version of her family history. Difficult mother, absent father, estranged sister. She omitted the darker truths. The bruises she'd hidden under long sleeves, the police visits, the night she'd found her mother unconscious, while 12-year-old Emily sobbed beside her. "You should go back," Alex said gently. "For closure, if nothing else." But Claire couldn't face it. Not her dying mother, not the town that had witnessed her shame, not the sister she'd promised to protect, but ultimately abandoned. Instead, she channeled her turmoil into a new series of paintings, working feverishly through sleepless nights. These works were different, darker, more visceral. When Marcus saw them, his eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "This is what I've been waiting for," he said. "This honesty will make you unforgettable." What Claire didn't tell him was that each canvas contained coded truths about her life and about the people around her. In her pursuit of artistic breakthrough, she began incorporating elements from private conversations with Vanessa, secrets Alex had shared in intimate moments, observations she'd made about their vulnerabilities and hidden struggles. She told herself it wasn't betrayal but transformation, turning private pain into universal truth. Yet deep down, she knew she was crossing boundaries, mining her relationships for creative material without consent. 3 months later, her mother died. Claire didn't attend the funeral. Instead, she completed the final painting for her solo exhibition, a piece that synthesized everything: her childhood trauma, her abandonment of Emily, and the complicated web of loyalty and betrayal connecting her to Alex, Vanessa, and Marcus. She titled it "The Weight of Echoes." Claire regained consciousness to the rhythmic beeping of hospital monitors. Sunlight filtered through Venetian blinds, casting striped shadows across starched white sheets. Her body felt heavy, distant, as if it belonged to someone else. A dull pain throbbed behind her temples. "She's awake," a familiar voice said. Marcus. Nurse appeared in her field of vision, checking her vitals with practiced efficiency. You're a lucky woman, Miss Mackenzie. That ravine has claimed lives before. Lucky. The word seemed absurd given the circumstances. As the nurse left, Marcus approached the bed. His expression, typically confident and calculating, now revealed genuine concern. You gave us quite a scare, Claire. How did you find me? Her voice emerged as a rasp. Location tracking on your phone. Alex was frantic when you disappeared. He called everyone. Claire closed her eyes, memories of the gallery opening flooding back, the crowded room, the champagne flutes catching light, her centerpiece painting unveiled, the weight of echoes, and then the shift in the atmosphere as recognition dawned on the faces of those closest to her. Where is Alex? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. Marcus hesitated. He's, processing. Vanessa's with him. The silence that followed contained volumes. Claire turned toward the window, unable to face Marcus's gaze. The exhibition? It's the talk of the art world. Controversy sells, Claire. Collectors are clamoring for your work. His words should have thrilled her once. Now they felt hollow. I need to see them, she said. Claire, I don't think... Please, Marcus, I need to make this right. He sighed, running a hand through his silver-streaked hair. You have 2 broken ribs, a concussion, and 20 stitches in your forehead. Focus on healing first. But healing wasn't just physical, and Claire knew. Postponing the inevitable would only deepen the wounds she'd inflicted. Then bring me my phone. After Marcus left, a different visitor arrived, a woman Claire hardly recognized at first. It had been 7 years, after all. Emily stood awkwardly in the doorway, her once wild curls now tamed into a practical bob. At 25, she had their mother's high cheekbones, but none of her fragility. Your boyfriend called me, Emily said. Found my number in your contacts. Claire struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain in her ribs. Alex called you? Emily shook her head. Marcus said you'd been in an accident. She approached cautiously as if Claire might shatter. Also said you've become some big-shot artist. The bitterness in her tone wasn't lost on Claire. Don't. Emily raised a hand. I didn't come for apologies. I came because... She paused, collecting herself. Because you're still my sister, even after everything. Those simple words, acknowledgement of their bond despite Claire's abandonment, broke something open inside her. Tears spilled down her cheeks, stinging the cuts on her face. I saw your painting, Emily continued quietly. Online. The one. Causing all the fuss. Claire froze. How did you know it was about... us? Mom? That night? Emily's laugh held no humor. I lived it too, remember? I recognized every symbol, every reference. You turned our pain into... what? Entertainment? A career boost? It wasn't like that, Claire whispered, though part of her feared Emily was. Right. Then what was it like? Because from where I stand, you ran away, reinvented yourself, and then exploited our trauma for your professional gain, all while leaving me behind to deal with the aftermath. Each word struck with precision, laying bare the self-serving narrative Claire had constructed to justify her choices. She had convinced herself that her art transcended personal ethics, that the end justified the means. I was scared, Claire admitted, the truth finally surfacing. Terrified that I'd end up like her, angry, bitter, trapped. I thought if I separated myself completely, I could outrun it. But you didn't outrun anything, Emily said softly. You just carried it differently. Before Claire could respond, Alex appeared in the doorway. The sight of him, exhausted, unshaven, eyes rimmed red, made her heart constrict. Emily glanced between them and quietly excused herself, squeezing Alex's arm gently as she passed. A long moment, Alex just stood there, studying Claire as if seeing her for the first time. When he finally spoke, his voice was eerily calm. Why? It was the same question he'd asked at the gallery, but now it contained multitudes. Why did you betray my trust? Why did you expose Vanessa's private struggles to public scrutiny? Why did you transform our intimate moments into spectacle? Claire had rehearsed explanations, justifications about artistic integrity and universal truth. They all evaporated under the weight of his gaze. I thought I needed it, she said finally. The pain, the secrets, mine, yours, everyone's. I thought transforming it was the only way to make meaningful art. She swallowed hard. Marcus convinced me that greatness required sacrifice. And we were the sacrifice. It wasn't a question. I lost perspective. The lines between art and life, between creation and exploitation, they blurred. By the time I realized what I was doing, it was too late to pull back. Alex moved to the window, his back to her. Vanessa had a panic attack after seeing herself in your painting. All her private fears about her marriage, her fertility struggles, things she told you in confidence, displayed for everyone to analyze. Each word was a knife twist. Claire had known her choices would hurt them, but facing the concrete reality was unbearable. The worst part, Alex continued, is that it's brilliant work, technically masterful, emotionally devastating. He turned to face her, and utterly unforgivable. The finality in his voice crushed her. Alex, I need time. Claire, we all do. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad. You're alive. Despite everything, I couldn't bear it if... His voice broke, and he left the sentence unfinished as he walked away. Alone again, Claire stared at the ceiling, the full consequences of her choices settling over her like a shroud. Her breakthrough exhibition had come at an incalculable cost. Success purchased with betrayal was no success at all. Outside her window, Providence continued its daily rhythm, indifferent to her personal catastrophe. Somewhere in the city, her exhibition drew crowds. Her name buzzed on critics' lips and Marcus fielded offers from collectors. Meanwhile, the people she loved most nursed wounds she had inflicted in the name of art. The irony was crushing. She had finally created work of undeniable significance, only to lose everything that actually mattered. 3 months later, Claire stood before a small audience in a community center meeting room. This wasn't a prestigious gallery or museum lecture hall, just a simple space with folding chairs and fluorescent lighting. The 24 people facing her weren't art world elites, but ordinary individuals, some in recovery, others supporting loved ones through addiction, a few social workers and counselors. Art gave me a way to process trauma, she explained, gesturing to the simple paintings displayed on easels around the room. But I learned the hard way that healing doesn't happen in isolation, and it certainly doesn't happen when you wound others in the process. Since leaving the hospital, Claire had withdrawn from the commercial art world, despite Marcus's protests. Her exhibition had indeed launched her to new professional heights. Museum curators called, collectors competed for her work, and a prestigious New York gallery offered representation. She declined it all. Instead, she had moved into a modest apartment near Emily's place in their hometown, Mapleton, Indiana. The sisters were rebuilding their relationship slowly, navigating decades of complicated history, one conversation at a time. Some days were easier than others. Claire had started volunteering at the community center, teaching art to at-risk youth and facilitating creative expression workshops for adults processing trauma. Today's exhibition showcased work from these workshops, including 2 of her own pieces, simpler, more direct than her previous style, but no less powerful. After the presentation, as attendees mingled and examined the artwork, Claire spotted a familiar figure by the refreshment table. Vanessa stood examining a collage created by one of the teenage participants, her red hair now streaked with elegant silver. Claire's heart raced as she approached. They hadn't spoken since the night of the exhibition. Vanessa. The older woman turned, her expression guarded but not hostile. Hello, Claire. What are you doing in Indiana? Visiting family in Indianapolis. Emily mentioned your event. Vanessa gestured toward the artwork around them. This is unexpected. Claire nodded, fighting the urge to fill the awkward silence with desperate apologies. They had exchanged terse emails, Claire's full of remorse, Vanessa's politely acknowledging but maintaining distance. "Your work has evolved," Vanessa observed, nodding toward Claire's newest painting, a simple scene of two girls sitting on a porch step, faces turned toward a stormy sky. "Everything has," Claire replied, quietly. They moved to a quiet corner, away from the mingling attendees. Vanessa studied her former protégé with the analytical eye that had intimidated Claire years ago. "You look well," she said finally. "More at peace." "I'm trying to be. Some days are better than others." Claire hesitated. "How are you?" "Really?" Vanessa considered the question. "I was angry for a long time, hurt, betrayed." She spoke matter-of-factly, without the heat of fresh emotion. "What you did, using our confidences, exposing private struggles, it violated every boundary." "I know," Claire whispered. "I have no excuse." "No, you don't." Vanessa's directness had always been refreshing, even when painful. "But I didn't come here to rehash old wounds. I came because Emily said something interesting when she called. She said you're doing the hard work. Now, not just creating art about pain, but actually helping people through it." Claire hadn't expected this opening, this slim possibility of reconnection. "It's the least I can do, using art for healing rather than exploitation." Vanessa nodded thoughtfully. "Marcus is furious with you, by the way. Says you're wasting your talent in obscurity. Marcus cares about art, not artists. I learned that distinction too late." A small smile flickered across Vanessa's face. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. "Alex misses you," she said unexpectedly. Claire's heart stuttered. "He told you that?" "Not in so many words, but I know him better than almost anyone." Vanessa reached into her purse and withdrew a business card, placing it deliberately on the table between them. "He's curating a show on ethical storytelling in contemporary art, a response to the commodification of trauma. You might have something valuable to contribute to that conversation." Claire stared at the card, afraid to reach for it. "I don't deserve—" "This isn't about what you deserve," Vanessa interrupted. "It's about what might heal, for all of us." She stood, gathering her coat. "Just think about it." After Vanessa left, Emily approached, eyebrows raised in silent question. "An olive branch," Claire explained, showing her the card. "A small one. Are you going to call?" Claire looked around the community center, at the proud workshop participants, at the honest artwork born not from ambition, but from genuine need for expression. Then she thought of Providence, of Alex, of the bridges she'd burned in pursuit, of artificial catharsis. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me wants to run toward any chance of reconciliation, but another part wonders if I'm still the same person who justified hurting others for the sake of art." Emily considered this, then shrugged with newfound sisterly frankness. "Maybe you need to find out. Real growth isn't tested in safe spaces. It's tested when you face the messes you've made." Later that night, Claire sat on her small apartment balcony, watching summer lightning illuminate the Midwestern sky. The atmospheric electricity mirrored her internal turbulence, hope and fear, regret and possibility, all swirling together. She thought about the car accident that had marked her turning point, how in that moment of crisis, stripped of pretense and ambition, she had seen her choices with brutal clarity. She thought about Emily's resilience, Vanessa's capacity for measured reconnection, and the unknown quantity of Alex's feelings. The storm moved closer, thunder rumbling like distant applause. Claire pulled out her phone and Alex's number, still, memorized despite months of silence. Her finger hovered over the screen. Whatever came next, reconciliation or rejection, forgiveness or final closure, would require the courage to face consequences honestly. True art, she was learning, didn't require exploitation. It required something far more demanding, the willingness to be both vulnerable and responsible, to tell truths without weaponizing them. Claire pressed the call button and waited, her breath suspended between heartbeats, 1 ring, 2, 3. "Claire," his voice cautious but not cold. "Alex she said, closing her eyes as rain began to fall. I'm ready to listen.